Hope it does. Okay. I hope it does come up in this case. Because then, if this is true, if they did know each other, if there was some type of grudge, if there was some type of uh, if there was some type of rift between them, if there was some type of previous altercation, then that would explain a lot. Okay, so we still have to find this out. So we'll talk about that as well. Now, late last night, we get actually when I got off the air last night. What happened was when I got off the air last night, we got I got the disturbing news. Roland Martin posted about it, and I sent Roland a text message trying to find out more information. But attorney and legal analyst Midwin Charles passed away Tuesday at age 47. If you watch MSNBC, you watch CNN, you've seen Midwin Charles. She's been on Roland Martin Unfiltered also. So, that's a big loss. We'll talk a little bit about Midwin Charles. You've heard me talk about the protests, the Georgia SB 202, the Georgia voter restriction law, and protests around the Georgia voter restriction law. Okay, so we've been talking about this here on the show pretty much every day for the past 3-4 weeks, something like that. And there was going to be an economic boycott that was going to start on Wednesday, and it's led by Bishop Reginald Jackson. The boycott has been delayed. We'll talk some about that. But the Masters golf tournament is coming up, and they're going to have protests at the Masters golf tournament. Okay, they're going to be protests at the Masters golf tournament. So we'll give you an update on what's taking place there. This is extremely important. We know that, according to the Brennan Center for Justice, we know that you have these Jim Crow era draconian voter restriction bills now in 47 states. Okay, across the country, it's about 361 bills in 47 states. And this is all behind the big lie that was pushed by Donald Trump and Matt Gaetz and many other Republicans, Rudy Giuliani, things like this about a stolen election. No, it wasn't stolen. You just lost. That's what happened. So we'll give you an update on what's taking place there. And then also today is Billie Holiday's birthday. Born Eleanor Fagan. Billie Holiday, who was a lot of people are talking about, have been talking about recently because of the movie, The United States versus Billie Holiday. I did a 2-hour show dealing with the history of Billie Holiday and what happened to her and how she was targeted by the U.S. government, especially a white supremacist bigot named Harry J. Anslinger, who ultimately played a role in her death. Harry J. Anslinger, first chairman of the national. He was the chairman of the first chairman of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. Harry J. Anslinger. Well, Billie Holiday was born April 7th, 1915. April 7th, 1915. So we'll talk a little bit about Billie Holiday. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now, it's corrects your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you haven't taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when we control the radius of a man or a woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events and history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Sign up for our email newsletter there as well. like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, or through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. All right. And you can still register for the online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. It's a 9-week, 18-hour online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. I teach it on Tuesdays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the class there. All right, we're coming up on a break here. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, everybody. How's everybody doing? Stand by. All right, stand by, everybody. Got Ruby, Anita. Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Stand by. All right, we're back from break in 2 minutes. Stand by. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, April 7th, 2021, and we're live. Hope everybody's doing well. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what happened today during day 8 of the Derek Chauvin trial. So we saw use of force expert Sergeant Jody Steiger back on the witness stand. And I'm going to go to this clip here in just a minute. I'm not sure. Do we have Shakita? Hopefully you got the clips I emailed. But it was some very damaging testimony that came out today. So, Los Angeles Police Department Sergeant Jody Steiger was back on the witness stand, and he has trained thousands of police officers in use of force tactics. He continued his testimony today. He testified that Derek Chauvin's use of a knee restraint on George Floyd's neck constituted deadly force, because George Floyd was not resisting. Okay, now this is something that I've been saying here on this show, and I've watched every day of the trial. You know, we've been talking about it here. And you see George Floyd stop moving, stop talking, and the pressure on the neck still continued. So you have to ask the question, why? All right. And then this ties into also the question of, did they have a prior interaction? Did they have a prior altercation? Okay. Did they know each other? Okay. Was there some type of bad blood there? And that ties into the segment from CBS This Morning back from June 2020. Now, Sergeant Jody Steiger testified, quote, he was not attempting to evade. He was not attempting to evade. He was not attempting to resist, and that pressure was being caused. And that was being called. He was not attempting to resist, and that pressure that was being caused by the body weight could cause asphyxia, which could cause death. Okay, so once again, you see that the use of force that was used on George Floyd was a deadly use of force, and it was not necessary. So you have to ask the question, why? And why did it continue for so long? Sergeant Jody Steiger, who's a use of force expert, said that the knee was on George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Okay. Steiger also said it appears Chauvin never took his knee off of George Floyd for the entire 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Now, the defense attorney Eric Nelson argued that Chauvin's knee can be seen on George Floyd's shoulder blade area at some points in the video footage of the incident. Yeah, but still, it's on his neck. One, two, it continued. Chauvin continued to apply the pressure even after George Floyd stopped moving and stopped talking. So once again, you have to ask the question, why? You can't say when George Floyd appears to be unconscious, stops moving, stops talking, foam coming out of his mouth, you can't argue that you were afraid he was just going to jump up, break out the handcuffs, and beat on his chest like King Kong. Because this is how they're trying to portray George Floyd, as this superhuman black man that has superhuman strength. This is how they're trying to portray him. Okay. And yesterday we talked about excited delirium, okay, which is one of the arguments that's being made by the defense. Okay, excited delirium. Well, excited delirium has a history rooted in racism. Okay, and I'm going to try to find that. We'll find that from yesterday. So be sure to watch the show from Tuesday. Yeah, here we go. This is from New York Times. Be sure to watch the show from Tuesday, December 6th. Tuesday, December 6th. Okay. All right. I want to go to. We're going to go to clip number 1 here. This is from NBC Nightly News. Use of force expert testifies body camera audio debate, because there was a trick that defense attorney Eric Nelson tried to play with some audio of George Floyd that is somewhat inaudible, but you hear let's go to this clip. You'll see what happens. Let's go to this clip, Shakita. Okay, take it.
Cops this week testified former Minneapolis officer Derek Chauvin did not follow his training. Today, the defense fought back.
A reasonable officer could perceive the words that people are saying and the tone that it is being said in as a threat or a risk to the officer's safety. Agreed? A risk, possibly, but officers are typically trained that when it comes to verbal threats in and themselves, that you can't just use that only to justify force.
Attorney Eric Nelson cross-examined Sergeant Jody Steiger of the LAPD, a use of force expert, who said Chauvin's actions were excessive. Nelson drilling down, arguing that a crowd of bystanders distracted Chauvin. Steiger shot back that Chauvin's 866 hours of training should have prepared him.
Even I was surprised that he has the audacity to say, oh, it's the crowd's fault. These angry people, which I think is a suggestive way of trying to say these angry black people. It's just asinine.
In that crowd, a 9-year-old who testified earlier in the trial. The prosecution says the bystanders weren't dangerous. They were concerned.
Did you see anybody throw any rocks or bottles? No, I did not. Did you see anyone physically attack the officers? No, I did not.
But the defense is also raising more questions about Floyd's drug use, playing a short clip from a body camera to Special Agent James Ryerson with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, who investigated the police. Floyd's pained voice is heard while he's being restrained.
Did it appear that Mr. Floyd said, I ate too many drugs?
The prosecution had a dramatically different interpretation when it played a longer clip.
Having heard it in context, you're able to tell what Mr. Floyd is saying there? Yes, I believe Mr. Floyd is saying, I ain't do no drugs.
At the courthouse this week,
it's definitely nail-biting, I can say.
George Floyd's youngest brother, Rodney, watched multiple officers take the stand.
This was never seen chief officers willing to testify against their own. We need more of that across this country. Accountability. That's it.
Late today, the prosecution called several witnesses who examined pills found in the back of the police squad car. Investigators testified the pills contained meth.
Okay, so that was from NBC Nightly News from Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. It's at NBC.com. This is from MSNBC. This deals with let me see. We're going to go to let's see. We're going to go to I think it's going to be clip 3. We're going to go jump to just a second here. I want to go to yeah, let's go to clip 3. This is from Deadline White House. Agent Ryerson modifies testimony, said he heard Floyd say, I ain't do no drugs. So what defense attorney Nelson did was took about 10 seconds of a clip and he planted into the witness's mind, basically, that George Floyd said, I ate too many drugs. Which really doesn't make sense because most people won't, they may say, I took too many drugs, but not I ate too many drugs. Okay. But then on redirect, the prosecution plays a longer excerpt of the clip to put George Floyd's words in context, and it gives a different interpretation. Okay. See, this is how desperate the defense is. Now, it's important for people to understand, once again, the defense has not presented their case, meaning that they're doing cross-examination. The defense has not presented their case yet. It's important for people to understand. They're doing cross-examination, but this is the prosecution's case. These are the prosecution's witnesses. Once the prosecution presents their case, the prosecution will rest, and then the defense will present their case and bring their witnesses, etc. So it's expected that the case will last between 2 to 4 weeks. We're already in week 2. This was day 8. Okay, so I want to go to this clip here, clip number 3. Now this is from Deadline White House. So this is Senior Special Agent James Ryerson from the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. So he testified today, and defense attorney Eric Nelson, Chauvin's attorney, played a 10-second clip of George Floyd during the altercation, and he planted into the witness's mind that George Floyd said, "I ate too many drugs," which doesn't make sense. Somebody may say, "I took too many drugs," but they wouldn't say, "I ate too many drugs," unless it's what is it, gummy bears? I mean, but this is desperation. So then the prosecution, you're going to hear the prosecution play on redirect. They're going to play a longer excerpt to put that 10 seconds into context. And here's what happened. Let's go to clip number 3 from Deadline White House. It's in the second email I sent. Take it off mute. All right, just press play when you have it ready. And then after this clip, I want to go back to June 2020. June 10th, 2020, there was a segment from CBS This Morning, and it dealt with George Floyd and Derek Chauvin bumped heads while working at nightclub, former co-worker says. Do we have clip 3 ready? Hold on. What we doing? Okay, hold on. We don't have, I gotta call back in. Hold on just a second. I had to reconnect to the station. All right. This is Michael again. Okay. All right. Okay. Do we have clip 3 ready?
I'm about to get it ready right now.
All right. So we'll reconnect it back to 9:10 a.m. Superstation. I'm having technical. I'm having technical difficulties with the laptop here. I want to go to clip 3 here in just a second, as soon as we get it ready. So this is from Deadline White House, and this is Senior Special Agent James Ryerson, Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, who modified his testimony to say he heard George Floyd say, "I ain't do no drugs," quote unquote, "I ain't do no drugs," after the prosecution played an extended video from George Floyd's arrest. Okay. Senior Special Agent James Ryerson originally said he heard George Floyd say, quote, "He ate too many drugs," end quote. But that's after that was planted in his mind. But that's after it was planted in his mind by defense attorney Eric Nelson. Let's go to this clip number 3.
Jill Brewster live in Minneapolis, as he has been throughout. Joyce Vance is back with us. So bring us up to speed, will you, Shaka? What were some of the big moments today, and where are we now?
I'll tell you right now, we're hearing from the investigators from the state's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. They were some of the investigators who secured the evidence, who protected it. They're talking about the chain of custody right now. So those are the last 2 that we're expecting for today, at least based on the timing when court usually breaks for the day. But you mentioned that testimony that we heard from Sergeant Steiger from the Los Angeles Police Department. He is one of the expert witnesses here. He reviews use of force. He says he's reviewed the body camera video here, and you heard the key part that the prosecution wanted to get out of him today was that he believes the force was excessive. He put that into the legal phrase, saying that the force was not objectively reasonable, and that was what the prosecution was really trying to get out of his testimony. But in the cross-examination, you mentioned it was fairly extensive from Eric Nelson, trying to bring up some of the points that he's been bringing up in the past, going through very meticulously during that cross-examination, including this one moment that I want to share for you. Let's play it, and then we'll talk about it on the backside.
Hear what he said? No, I couldn't make it out. Does it sound like he says, I ate too many drugs? Listen again.
So you heard that moment. Eric Nelson threw a question suggesting that George Floyd, in that muddled audio, said, I ate too many drugs. Well, there was one of the investigators who testified right after and actually agreed with Eric Nelson after Eric Nelson played that video and said, oh, yeah, it does sound like George Floyd said that. But then the prosecution did something unusual. They recalled that witness. They gave him more time to actually look at the tape, look at it in full context, including what the officer said to George Floyd right before that video. And you actually had a rare correction of what was said on the stand. You heard that Officer Ryerson or Investigator Ryerson say instead that George Floyd said, quote, I ain't do no drugs. That's a pretty significant difference than from what Eric Nelson was originally suggesting. But that goes to the idea of the strategy that you're seeing here, where the defense is focused on the drugs that were in George Floyd's system. We expect that to only increase as we hear from the medical examiner later this week. But for the prosecution, they're focused on the moments where George Floyd was under the knee of ex-officer Derek Chauvin. For them, that's the key piece of evidence, and that's really what they want the jury to focus on. And that goes to the idea that we're hearing a lot about the use of force and the Minneapolis Police Department's training and practices.
Okay, so that is from Deadline White House. Very, very, there's something significant that happened today because it's like the defense got caught trying to see defense attorney Eric Nelson is trying to plant doubt in the mind of one juror. It only takes one juror to say that he doesn't think that Chauvin actually killed George Floyd to have a mistrial. Okay, it takes 12 jurors to unanimously agree that Chauvin is guilty for him to be found guilty. It takes only 1 out of 12 to have a mistrial, okay, or a hung jury, a mistrial, which means the prosecution has to try the case over again if the prosecution chooses to try the case over again. All right, so it just takes one. So you just have to have reasonable doubt. Okay, one juror just has to have reasonable doubt. That's what defense attorney Eric Nelson is trying to do. All right. Now, so we heard from Sergeant Jody Steiger. Now, Sergeant Jody Steiger, who is a use of force expert, also said that police officers have known for at least 20 years that asphyxia is a risk when putting a subject in such a position. Okay, on their back, on their stomach, prone, handcuffs behind their back. Okay. Now, Chauvin's defense also argued that the crowd that witnessed George Floyd being restrained was angry and distracted by the officers. That's been refuted. They were concerned about George Floyd, but it wasn't an angry, out of control, violent crowd like the defense is trying to portray it. Now, Sergeant Jody Steiger disagreed, saying he did not find the crowd threatening. And he said they were merely filming, and most of it was their concern for Mr. Floyd. So this was not really a good day for the defense. All right. Now, I want to go to clip number 2 here. I want to go to clip number 2. And clip number 2 deals with, this is from June 10th, 2020. June 10th, 2020. So remember, George Floyd was killed May 25th, 2020, Memorial Day. This is from CBS This Morning. George Floyd and Derek Chauvin bumped heads while working at nightclub, former co-worker says. Now, I talked about this when this story came out. We talked about this right here on this show. And I said, okay, that makes sense for that level of brutality. If they already knew each other, they had some type of disagreement previously, then that explains more that level of brutality as opposed to just doing it to somebody who's just a perfect stranger. You know, because a lot of people sitting back and wonder, why would he do something like that to somebody who he didn't even know? It makes no sense whatsoever. If there was some type of previous interaction, some type of disagreement, even though it's still wrong, okay, then it starts falling into place more. You start realizing, okay, there was something previous that happened that we didn't know about. Doesn't mean that it was right that it happened, but it explains, all right, there was some type of disagreement or something like that, and this was a continuation of that. Okay. So I want to go to this clip here. This is from CBS This Morning. Let's go to this clip, Shakita.
CBS News is learning more about a possible connection between George Floyd and the former police officer charged with second-degree murder in his death. David Penny, a co-worker of Floyd and Derek Chauvin at a Minneapolis nightclub, told our Jeff Pegues the two had a history, he said, when they worked security.
What kind of history?
They bumped heads.
How?
It has a lot to do with Derek being extremely aggressive within the club with some of the patrons, which was an issue.
Jeff Pegues joins us now from Minneapolis with more on this part of the story. Jeff, what else are we learning about this?
Well, good morning, Gail. David Penny and many others are aware of George Floyd and Derek Chauvin working at the same time at this nightclub. Chauvin was on the outside working a detail, and then George Floyd worked on the inside. Now, Penny, as you noted, was a co-worker also working on that security detail, and he told me that the two men butted heads. He also described Chauvin as being, in his words, aggressive toward minority customers. Now, Penny also tells me that the manager of the club would hand out paychecks to the security staff on the inside, people like George Floyd. And it was then their job to then pay the outside staff, people like Derek Chauvin. And in one occasion, according to David Penny and another person we talked to, Chauvin took issue with how much he was being paid and blamed George Floyd, who had handed him the check. All right, so they had a beef, in your view, at least one time over money.
Exactly, but it's not George's responsibility of what he receives as pay for moonlight. That's the manager's job from the club.
But Derek took it out on George.
Exactly. Is what I understand. At the time, yes, because he took it out against me, and I actually made him leave the club. I had to make him leave the club.
So, is there any doubt in your mind that Monday, Derek didn't know who George was?
I'd say he knew him.
You think he knew who George was?
Yes.
Any doubt in your mind that he knew who George was?
No. No doubt in my mind. He knew exactly who George was.
So we also spoke with the club owner, who said that she was not aware of any payroll issues, but she also described Derek Chauvin as being aggressive toward minority customers. And there is another issue. She said that, she didn't want to complain to the police department about Chauvin's behavior because she felt if she complained, she would get someone worse than Derek Chauvin, because in her words, Chauvin was one of the good cops in the precinct.
So she didn't want him being replaced with another cop that she felt would be a bully. Gail.
Hey, Jeff, if what Mr. Penny is saying is true, and he does seem very adamant about it, what does it mean? Is this significant?
It's significant because investigators will try to figure out what was in Derek Chauvin's mind at the time this incident here occurred. Was there some sort of intent? I mean, if you look at that video, there are a lot of people who are wondering, why did he keep pressing his knee against George Floyd's neck? And so they have, according to our sources, asked the same question. Did the two men know each other? They are aware that the two men worked at that club at the same time.
Okay.
All right, Jeff. Thank you very much.
All right. So that was for CBS this morning. From CBS this morning, you heard Gail King also there. Now, that is from June 10th, 2020. Okay. The month after George Floyd was killed. All right. So I'm waiting on this to come up in the trial, because then that would play into motive. I'm waiting for this to come up in the trial. Now, I don't know if I'm sure the prosecution has investigated this, but still, I'm waiting for this to come up in the trial. So we'll see. All right. Now, very quickly here, I want to look at Washington Post, and I want to look at check out the live updates they have from the Washington Post dealing with this. I read the ones from Washington Post, New York Times, NBC News, dealing with this case. But if we look at the live updates from Washington Post, Chauvin's attorney argues Floyd said, "I can't breathe," was a form of resisting arrest. See, this is what happens when you're desperate. This is what happens when you're desperate. Okay. And you know your client's guilty. The defense requested a second search of the police vehicle with focus on drugs. So the defense is focusing on George Floyd was high on drugs. Okay, he was a threat. Excited delirium. We'll talk about excited delirium in just a minute. And let's see, Shakita, I'm going to go to clip number. We'll go to clip. Which one is this? We're going to Paul Butler, the readout. Paul Butler calls Chauvin defense of putting Floyd on trial. We'll go to that in just a second. Now, if we look at the update here, Chauvin defense team requested that. We're going to blow this up here. Chauvin defense team requested that investigators search the police car George Floyd was forced into because of a white pill found on the floor in the back seat, a forensic scientist testified. All right. Now, also, defense attorney Nelson continued to underscore the role of the crowd of bystanders had during the incident, arguing that they adversely impacted the officer's decision process and response. We know that's not true. They didn't do that. It was not an angry crowd. That's already been refuted. Okay, I want to go to this clip here. This is from the readout, Joanne Reed, MSNBC. Georgetown law professor Paul Butler calls Chauvin defense of putting George Floyd on trial, quote, beginning of a long, dirty path play, end quote. Let's go to this clip.
Even more absurd argument made by Mr. Nelson today, and that is that he's trying to claim that George Floyd, while being held down in the car, said, "I ate too many drugs," which strikes me as something that no one has ever said ever in life, rather than I've done no drugs, which is what you can hear him say. Your thoughts on that?
So first, the problem with the defense argument about the crowd is that last week the jury met the people in the crowd. The brave teenage girl who made the video, the EMT first responder who begged Chauvin to let her take Mr. Floyd's pulse, Charles McMillan, the older gentleman who broke down in sobs because he couldn't save Mr. Floyd's life. The crowd doesn't look like a vicious, angry mob. The jury might think the people in the crowd dealt with Mr. Floyd more responsibly than Chauvin did. And unfortunately, the prosecutor has to respond to the argument that Mr. Floyd died of a drug overdose, and this is just the beginning of a long, dirty pathway. So next week, the defense has its own videotape from an arrest of Mr. Floyd in 2019. It starts out like his encounter with Chauvin. Cops approach the car. They take out their gun, and Mr. Floyd then appears to swallow some pills. And that time, the cops took him to the hospital. So the defense wants the jury to think that Mr. Floyd did the same thing when Chauvin arrested him, but this time, when he swallowed the pills, they killed him.
Oh, is that it? All right. Okay, so that is Georgetown law professor Paul Butler, okay, from the Readout with Joanne Reed, April 7th, 2021, MSNBC. Read this article here from Washington Post. Derek Chauvin used his body weight to pin George Floyd's neck and never moved, use of force expert says. This is Sergeant Jody Steiger from the Los Angeles Police Department, use of force expert, police use of force expert. Derek Chauvin used his body weight to pin George Floyd's neck and never moved, use of force expert says. Okay, read that article from the Washington Post. All right, now I want to go to this. Let me see how much time we have here. Let's squeeze this in. Let's go to, well, we'll do this. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF, so we'll continue after we lose 910. Those watching on Facebook, on the African History Network on Facebook, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Keep watching. We're going to keep broadcasting. We'll keep going for a few more minutes, and then we'll also talk about Billie Holiday. Today is Billie Holiday's birthday. Born April 7th, 1915, one Eleanora Fagan, better known by her professional name as Billie Holiday. Okay. Remember, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace. All right, let me disconnect this call. Okay. Let me, I want to go to this next clip here. This is Los Angeles Police Department Jody Steiger testifying that he did not perceive bystanders as a threat during George Floyd arrest. Okay. So once again, I can't stress enough, the defense has not presented their case yet. When the defense presents their case, as Georgetown law professor Paul Butler alluded, see, they're going to go with this fear of the big, strong black man high on drugs. They're going to bring out all these racial tropes, racial stereotypes. This is what they're going to do. When they talk about excited delirium, as we talked about on yesterday's show, when they talk about excited delirium, okay, excited delirium is rooted in racism. Excited delirium is rooted in racism. Well, I'll show you some information on that in just a second here. Okay, so I want to go to this clip here from, this is Sergeant Jody Steiger being questioned by the prosecution. Okay, just a second here.
In your experience with the Los Angeles Police Department and in the areas you were patrolling, have you ever had to use force or apply force, or handcuff a suspect in the view of bystanders?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever had to handcuff an unwilling suspect or subject in the view of bystanders?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever had to do so in the presence of a hostile crowd?
Yes, sir.
Could you define a hostile crowd in that context?
I would define hostile crowd in situations I've been in where the crowd or members of the crowd were threatening and or throwing bottles and rocks at us, at the police.
Have you had that experience?
Yes, sir.
On more than one occasion?
Yes.
Okay. So if I could publish Exhibit 184, getting back to the circumstances of this case, this appeared to be the bystanders that were gathered watching the defendant apply force to Mr. Floyd.
Yes, it does.
When you reviewed the body-worn cameras, did you see anybody throw any rocks or bottles?
No, I did not.
Did you see anyone physically attack the officers?
No, I did not.
Did you hear foul language or name calling?
There was some name calling, yes, but and some foul language, but that was about the most of it.
Did that factor into your analysis?
No.
Why not?
Because I did not perceive them as being a threat.
And why is that?
Because they were merely filming, and most of it was their concern for Mr. Floyd.
And in terms of proportionality in the force continuum, is the officer able to increase the use of force on an individual based on the conduct of some third party over whom the subject has no control?
No, the officers can only use force based on the subject's actions.
Okay. Officers can only use force based upon the subject's actions. Officers can only use force based upon the subject's actions. All right. So once again, when you go through and you can look at the updates from the live updates on NBC News. They have live updates on this trial, New York Times and Washington Post. When you go through and look at the testimony today, it is very damaging for the defense. Now, I want to go and flip over and revisit this about excited delirium. This ties into history once again, okay? And we talked about this on yesterday's show. And this is from the New York Times. Let's see, let's pull this up here. What is excited delirium? What is excited delirium? Okay. And it's excited delirium is rooted in racism. Let me pull this up here. Okay, let's flip over. I think this is right here. Okay. So this deals with the fear of African-American men on drugs. And see, there are all these stereotypes that we're dealing with. The fear of African-American men on drugs. They're going to have superhuman strength on drugs. They won't be able to feel pain. But also, there's a stereotype that African-Americans have a higher pain threshold, okay? There's also this stereotype that African-Americans have a higher pain threshold. And even people in medical school, you even have people in medical school who believe this stereotype. So there was a, and I'm going to see if I can pull this up here, blackdoctor.org had, blackdoctor.org had an article, and there are a number of articles dealing with this, that deal with the stereotype that African Americans have a higher pain threshold. Let's see if we can pull this up here. And then all this ties into history, which then ties into the history of slavery. So, for instance, let's look quickly at this. Let's look at this article, and then we'll go to excited delirium. This is from blackdoctor.org. Let's bring this up here in Google Chrome. Okay. Blackdoctor.org has a lot of really, really good articles. It's a really good source. Are blacks undertreated for pain? Are blacks undertreated for pain? Study reveals alarming racial bias. And I've talked about this here on my show before, and on Wake Up with Steve Hood, when I used to do the morning show on Thursdays on 9:10 a.m. Superstation, WFDF. I talked about this as well. According to a recent study, African Americans are less likely to receive pain medication in the ER, in the emergency room, because many medical students associate race with pain tolerance. Many medical students associate race with pain tolerance. In other words, blacks are believed to have thicker skin and therefore are routinely undertreated. Now, see, this ties back into slavery, when you had many people who felt that African Americans had a higher pain threshold and were more suited for slavery. Per the University of Virginia findings published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, white medical students, can we close out this video? Okay, I hate all these. Let me see, hold on. White medical students. Hold on just a second, let me try to close this goddamn thing out. White medical students and residents, a total of 222 participants, were quizzed to see how many believed inaccurate and at times fantastical differences between the two races. For example, that blacks have less sensitive nerve endings, that their blood coagulates more quickly, and that they age slower. Okay, now we know African Americans have more melanin. We know the saying "black don't crack," and there's some truth to that. But these other stereotypes are harmful. Okay, blacks have less sensitive nerve endings, and that their blood coagulates more quickly. All right, now, God damn it, can I close it? All right, read this article. I can't close out this video here. It's a pain in the ass. All right. Now, so let's look at this here from the dealing with excited delirium from the New York Times. And this is from what we learned from day 6 of the trial. And you can just Google what is excited delirium. Okay, this is that should have stopped, Minneapolis police chief says, of Chauvin actions. This is dealing with day 6 of the trial. And you can just Google what is excited delirium, and it's going to come up with the information from the New York Times. Let's scroll back down this here. Okay, what is excited delirium? Body camera footage of George Floyd's death captured one of the officers saying that he was concerned about excited delirium, or whatever, quote unquote, concerned about excited delirium or whatever, invoking a long-standing controversy over a term that is often cited in police custody deaths. Some experts insist that excited delirium syndrome is a genuine medical condition, while others say it is simply an excuse for police brutality. Okay, so then they go on to say that there's no generally accepted definition of excited delirium, according to a 2018 review of the scientific literature, but the term is used to describe someone who becomes distressed or aggressive from a mental illness or the use of psychoactive drugs. Now, excited delirium is not included in the International Classification of Diseases, and it's also not included in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM, which is the book that it has about 250 mental disorders. And this is what psychiatrists and psychologists use to diagnose mental disorders. But it has been recognized by the National Association of Medical Examiners and the American College of Emergency Physicians. Now, according to a report from the Brookings Institution, the term excited delirium is disproportionately applied to African Americans and was first used in 1985 to explain a series of sudden deaths in cocaine users occurring primarily while in police custody, and again to explain the deaths of 32 Black women in Miami in the 1980s who were later determined to have been asphyxiated by a serial killer. So when we look at excited delirium, it's rooted in racism. Okay? The term is disproportionately applied to African Americans and was first used in 1985 to explain a series of sudden deaths in cocaine users occurring primarily while in police custody. So research excited delirium. All right. Now, let's see where we're going to go to next. All right. So that was day 8. Read the updates on that. I got to move on. I want to go to quick update what's going on in Georgia, because everybody has Georgia on their mind. You've heard me talk about the protests in Georgia dealing with Senate Bill 202 that was signed into law March 25th by Governor Brian Kemp, the voter restriction bill. And there was supposed to be a economic boycott of certain Georgia companies that was going to start on Wednesday. That's been postponed. But there's going to be a protest of the Masters that's going to take place in the Atlanta area. So I want to go to, there's an article from Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Let's look at this here. Also, thehill.com had an article as well. Let's look at this one. Faith leaders delay boycott over Georgia election law planned Masters protests. Okay. Let's look at this. This is Bishop Reginald Jackson. This is from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution from April 6, 2021. So I'll be damned. Okay. I could read it in Google Chrome. I mean, I could read it in Firefox. Let's pull it up in. Let's pull it up in. Okay, I have it pulled up here in. Firefox. So let's flip over to Firefox. It's not showing me all the article in Google Chrome. Let's see here. Now I want to look at it in Firefox. Hold on. Let's do this. Just bear with me here. Okay, let's go over to Firefox right there. Okay, so a coalition of religious leaders is tapping the brakes on plans to boycott powerful Georgia-based businesses that did not vigorously oppose the state's new election overhaul. Bishop Reginald Jackson said Tuesday he will wait until after a planned virtual meeting with the executives of some of Georgia's biggest firms to decide whether to move forward with the boycott. Okay. And there's steps that you normally go through when you have these boycotts. And some people don't understand this. They just think you just jump up and say, we're going to have a boycott. We're not going to spend any money. No, that's a good way for the boycott not to work. Economic withdrawal strategies have to be planned. And usually you have a meeting with the entity that you are boycotting against first to see if it can be resolved without a boycott, without economic withdrawal. So it makes sense to have a meeting first. So Bishop Reginald Jackson said Tuesday, April 7th, that he will wait until after a planned virtual meeting with the executives of some of Georgia's biggest firms to decide whether to move forward with the boycott. He said, quote, hopefully we won't have to give the signal. Hopefully we won't have to give the signal. Bishop Reginald Jackson said he's the bishop of the AME 6th Episcopal District. He said, we want these companies to speak out publicly against this legislation. We want these companies to speak out publicly against this legislation, to use their lobbying resources to fighting restrictions in other states, and to publicly support federal legislation to expand voting rights. All right. Now, Bishop Reginald Jackson and other religious leaders planned a boycott this week to punish companies that sidestep the debate over the new voting restrictions. Since then, Coca-Cola and Delta Airlines issued scathing statements opposing the measure, and Major League Baseball pulled the All-Star game from Atlanta. Now, some Republican supporters of the measure of Senate Bill 202 have prompted their own calls for boycotts of Coca-Cola, Delta, and America's pastime baseball over their opposition to the measure. And Governor Brian Kemp, who stole an election from Stacey Abrams, has said the firms, the corporations in Major League Baseball, quote unquote, caved to fear from Democrats and other critics of the changes. Okay, but you all are pushing Senate Bill 202 based upon the big lie that you keep lying about. He said, I want to be clear. I will not be backing down from this fight. We will not be intimidated, and we will also not be silenced, Governor Brian Kemp said. Now, the overall, talking about the bill, the bishop said he spoke with executives with Coca-Cola and Delta Airlines shortly before they came out against the law last week, in that he's planning to deliver similar messages to executives with Aflac, AT&T, Home Depot, Southern Company, and UPS during their virtual call next week. Now, in the meantime, faith leaders plan to hold a protest soon outside the Augusta National Golf Club, which is set to stage the Masters this week. Okay, the Masters golf tournament this week. Augusta National has so far remained silent about the election law, Senate Bill 202, the same strategy it used when confronted with criticism over the club's demographic makeup. Bishop Reginald Jackson noted the demonstrations will highlight how Augusta National did not invite an African-American player to compete in the tournament until 1975 and did not admit its first African-American member until 1990. Now, this is where the Masters is being held. The Masters golf tournament, okay, is being held in Augusta, Georgia, at the Augusta National Golf Club. Augusta National Golf Club. The Augusta National Golf Club did not invite an African-American player to compete in the Masters tournament until 1975. And the Augusta National Golf Club did not admit its first African-American member until 1990. Now, Bishop Jackson said his goal is to keep attention on Georgia during the prestigious sporting event. Keep attention on Georgia. Now, some critics of the Senate Bill 202 are split between those demanding economic boycotts, economic withdrawal strategies, and others, including many elected officials and party leaders like Stacey Abrams, who say it's too soon to take that sort of step, economic boycotts. Republicans, meanwhile, are eager to pin the blame on Democrats for any economic fallout. Fulton County Commissioner Khadija Abdur-Rahman said the consensus among activists and other critics of the measure is that they're ready to boycott, though she said she will support less drastic steps in the spirit of collaboration. Now, when you have this boycott, it has to be very well planned out. The other thing that you want to do when you have economic boycotts is that you want to have alternatives for people to spend their dollars with. Okay, you want to have alternatives for people to spend their money with also. So if you say boycott Delta Airlines, for instance, you want to have another alternative or two alternatives for people to redirect their businesses to, airlines to redirect their businesses to. And in general, you want those companies that you redirect your dollars to be companies that support your cause. For instance, you don't want to redirect your dollars to XYZ Airlines and they don't and they're for SB 202. And they finance some of the Republicans that wrote the bill and voted for the bill. So when you have economic withdrawal strategies of certain corporations, you want to redirect dollars to other corporations that support your cause, because you don't want to redirect dollars to corporations that are against you also. That doesn't make sense. If you can redirect dollars to African-American owned businesses for some of those services, that's always good too. You want to do that as well. But we don't have any African-American airlines. So closest thing we have, I guess, is Southwest, because Tom Jordan, the fly jot, bags fly free. But you want to always have the alternative to redirect your dollars towards. Okay. One strategy is to have a website where people can go and get information about the economic boycott, why it's taking place, the names of the companies that you're boycotting, and then the names of the companies to redirect dollars to that are substitutes for the same products and services or similar products and services. In that website, you can direct people to. Yeah, social media is good. You could do Facebook, things like this, but you'll have more information on the website, and that's a central location that you can direct people to for information and guidance and how to participate in the economic withdrawal strategy. This is why all this stuff has to be organized. If you want to succeed, if you actually want to win, it has to be organized, because if you have this momentum behind an economic boycott and it's not successful, okay, well then it dampens people's spirit when it comes to something like this. Okay, it makes people feel, oh, okay, well, we can't do this. All right, but if you have it very well planned out and it's successful, one, it makes it easier for you to negotiate with other corporations because they see what happened in Georgia and they're gonna say, uh-oh, they're coming for us next. Okay, so we need to go ahead and get this together, because we saw what happened in Georgia. We saw they boycotted Coca-Cola and Delta and all this. Their stock price took a hit. We saw people across the country target those corporations in Georgia. We don't want them coming after us next. So we need to go ahead and get this together now. But if the boycott is knee-jerk and it's haphazard and it doesn't succeed, well, then that emboldens corporations, and then they say, okay, we don't have to worry about them. They're just all talk and no action. We don't have to worry about them. That's why you want to research the anatomy of economic withdrawal strategies, the anatomy of a boycott, and study successful economic boycotts like the one from 1981 that Reverend Jesse Jackson and Rainbow Push had against Coca-Cola. Study not just the Montgomery bus boycott, but also the Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the Tuskegee, Alabama economic boycott of 1957 that lasted 4 years, from 1957 to 1961. And that was over the state legislature in Alabama gerrymandering the voting district there in Tuskegee, Alabama, to lock out all except like about 400 African Americans out of that district to suppress their vote. And this economic boycott of white-owned businesses lasted 4 years. They put about 100 white-owned businesses out of business. This is the Tuskegee, Alabama economic boycott of 1957. A lot of people don't know about this one. When you study the Montgomery bus boycott of December 5th, 1955, and it goes all the way to December 20th of 1956, it lasted 381 days. That led to the U.S. Supreme Court case of Browder versus Gale. And it's the U.S. Supreme Court case of Browder versus Gale. That's what actually ends segregation on the buses. So it wasn't just an economic boycott. They also had a legal strategy. And it was the U.S. Supreme Court that ruled that segregation on the buses in Montgomery, Alabama was unconstitutional. That's what ended segregation on the buses. It wasn't the boycott. The boycott was important because it helped galvanize support and it put pressure on the Montgomery Bus Lines, Inc., and it put pressure on the city of Montgomery, Alabama. But it wasn't the boycott that ended segregation. It was the lawsuit and that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. That's what ended segregation on the buses. But the Montgomery bus boycott, the template that they operated based upon was the Baton Rouge, Louisiana bus boycott of 1953, led by the Reverend T.J. Jemison. That boycott in 1953 lasted 8 days because they really didn't have a template to operate based upon. But because of the boycott in 1953, Dr. King and E.D. Nixon and other leaders of the Montgomery bus boycott called Reverend T.J. Jemison for advice on how to structure theirs in 1955 and 56 in Montgomery, Alabama. So you have to study the anatomy of economic withdrawal strategies. It just can't be a knee-jerk reaction. And because of technology, it can be much more successful now because we have social media. But you want to have a website that's a central location where people can go virtually to get information and educate themselves on the boycott, how to participate, and also, more importantly, which businesses to direct their dollars towards when you engage in what I call economic guerrilla warfare and economic withdrawal strategies against certain corporations. All right, now, let's go back to this article here. This is from Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Okay, so Fulton County Commissioner Khadija Abdul-Rahman said the consensus among activists and other critics of the measure, Senate Bill 202, is that they are ready to boycott, though she said she will support less drastic steps in the spirit of collaboration. The other thing is, people like Stacey Abrams are saying if you boycott Georgia, it's going to hurt African Americans and Hispanic employees. Okay? There has to be a mechanism in place. There has to be efforts in place to help African Americans who may either be laid off from work or something like that, or displaced, what have you. What we can't have, see, economic withdrawal strategies is one of the most potent forms of fighting back against white supremacy and racism. Economic withdrawal strategies, because there's two things that the white power structure understands. One is money, the other is violence. And there's also a such thing as economic violence, because economic violence is being inflicted upon us right now. Like when you pay below a living wage, that's economic violence being inflicted upon us. Predatory loans is economic violence being inflicted upon us. What can't happen is, see, once again, you have 361 voter restriction bills pushed by Republicans in 47 states. Is it your argument that we're not going to have economic boycotts in 47 states because we're afraid of African Americans and Hispanics being hurt, being laid off, things like that? Well, we're already catching hell. If you're black and Hispanic, you would catch a hell yesterday. If you're black and Hispanic, you're catching hell today. And if the sun rises in the east and sets in the west tomorrow, you'll be catching hell tomorrow. Is it our argument that we're not going to use one of the most potent forms to fight back against white supremacy and racism because African Americans are afraid they're going to be laid off from work or something like that? Many of them have already been laid off from work because of the coronavirus pandemic. So part of the economic withdrawal strategy has to deal with helping those who may be displaced from a corporation that is being targeted with a boycott, trying to help financially, trying to galvanize resources. What we can't say is that we're not going to have economic boycotts because black people and Hispanics are going to be hurt. Well, hell, we're already being hurt. That helps the people who are inflicting the atrocity upon you by saying, well, we'll lay some of them off and then this will get them off our back. So we can't fall for that pitfall. We can't fall for that booby trap. This is why all this has to be very well orchestrated and planned out ahead of time. Okay, you all understand what I'm saying? Okay, let's continue here. All right, what happened? Okay, let's back up. All right, so Fulton County Commissioner Khadija Abdul Rahman said, "I do not think that all the diplomacy and all the protests in the world will work as well as putting pressure from boycotting and taking action with our dollars." I totally agree. Money talks. We have to. I've said before. I've said this on Roland Martin Unfiltered for the past like 5-6 weeks now, because I'm a panelist every Friday. I said we have to engage in all-out economic guerrilla warfare, a 50-state strategy, all-out economic guerrilla warfare targeting these corporations. Quote, "A boycott would send a clear, unified message that we're not going to take this foolishness. We're not going to take this foolishness." Now, the Reverend Ira Joe Johnson, a historian and lecturer at Stanford University, said he's planning his own individual boycott of Georgia-based firms that haven't stridently opposed the new law, even though he acknowledges it will have a minimal effect. All right, look, let me tell you something, okay? When you have, we can't have these little symbolic economic boycotts. It really needs to be planned, coordinated, and your strength comes when you take your boycott nationally, not when it's just local against a big national or international corporation. That's not where your strength is. Your strength is when you take your economic boycott nationally, and say, for instance, you have, go back to we need to study what Reverend Jesse Jackson did in 1981. That was a successful economic boycott against Coca-Cola. It lasted for about a month. All right. If we look at the Nashville, Tennessee economic boycott of the downtown business district in 1960, Nashville, Tennessee economic boycott of the downtown business district during 1960. It took place during Easter season. Reverend C.T. Vivian, John Lewis, who became Representative John Lewis, passed away last year. John Lewis, Diane Nash, they were all involved in this economic boycott. This is before SNCC is founded. SNCC is going to be founded in about May 1960. SNCC is going to be founded about a month after this or so. They were trying to break the back of segregation in Nashville, Tennessee. African Americans in Nashville, Tennessee spend about $10 million a year in the downtown business district. They were dealing with Jim Crow, facing discrimination when it came to the stores and things like this, the lunch counters, etc. So they had an economic boycott of all the stores in the downtown business district. This boycott spread to 59 cities across the country. African Americans up north were boycotting a lot of the chain stores in Nashville, Tennessee, that were in Nashville, Tennessee, that were discriminating against African Americans, like the Woolworths and the Kresge's, things like this. So African Americans up north who could get full service at these chain stores, they were boycotting them to be in solidarity with their brothers and sisters down in Nashville, Tennessee. Your strength is not local. Your strength is when you take this fight nationally and target corporations. So this economic boycott spread to 59 cities across the country, and they were able to break the back of segregation in Nashville, Tennessee because of this boycott. If you watch the third installment of Eyes on the Prize, the original Eyes on the Prize series, 1960 to 1961, is called Ain't Scared of Your Jails. Ain't Scared of Your Jails, because I have it on, I have the box set on DVD. That third installment, they deal with the economic boycott in Nashville, Tennessee. You go and watch that. That's deep. You have Representative Adam Clayton Powell saying he's calling on all Americans to boycott these corporations that are discriminating against African Americans in Nashville, Tennessee. Not just African Americans. He's calling on to boycott. He's calling on all Americans. Representative Adam Clayton Powell Jr. So this is why we have to go research and study these successful economic boycotts. The 1963 Birmingham, Alabama economic boycott that Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth is involved in. And it's going to be Reverend Fred, because they're trying to break the back of segregation in Birmingham, Alabama. And Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth calls Dr. King to come into Birmingham to help them in their fight against segregation in Birmingham. People think that Dr. King was the one that created that Birmingham movement. Okay, no, that was already in existence. Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth in Birmingham, Alabama, calls Dr. King because Dr. King was looking for a win. He was looking for a win because they had a setback in Albany, Georgia, with the Albany, Georgia movement in 1960 and 1961, and they were not able to defeat segregation in Albany, Georgia. And he's looking for a win to show that nonviolent direct action can still work. So Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth tells him, if you come to Birmingham, Alabama, I can guarantee you a win. And they were able to do this. That's 1963, Birmingham, Alabama. So we have to study this history. A people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future to meet the needs of the community. A people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future to meet the needs of the community. This is why we have to understand our history. Okay. So read the rest of this article here from Atlanta Journal-Constitution, because we're short on time and I have to get out of here. Okay, so the Reverend Ira Joe Johnson, a historian and lecturer at Stanford University, said he's planning. Okay, you look at some other people, man. We can't have all these one-off. This person over here having their boycott. This person over here having their boycott. That's not going to work. Conservatives warn they too could marshal an effective economic counterstrike against the firms that speak out. Dumbass Rand Paul said, if they want to boycott us, why don't we boycott them? This is the only thing that will teach them a lesson. If Coca-Cola wants to only operate in Democrat states and have only Democrats drink them, God love them. What a jackass. Rand Paul, I'll be so glad when he's up for re-election, there has to be a concerted effort to vote him out of office. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Total disgrace to the U.S. Senate. Okay. That's the same dumbass that voted against the he blocked Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky blocked the anti-lynching bill in the Senate that Senator Cory Booker and Senator Kamala Harris were trying to get passed. Senator Rand Paul blocked that bill. But idiot. But read this article here from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Faith leaders delay boycott over Georgia election law plan masters protests. Okay, this is from April 6, 2021, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. All right, quickly here. Midwin Charles, legal analyst and attorney. Midwin Charles passed away on Tuesday at age 47. You know, I got the news when I got off the air doing last night's show, because we ran over last night like we ran over now. And I saw a post I found out from Roland Martin. I sent Roland a text about this. I'm like, Roland, what is this? So I saw it on Roland's Facebook page that Midwin Charles passed away, and still trying to, I think we're still trying to find out cause of death. Let me pull up this article. News1.com had good article about this. Let me pull this up. Hold on. Legal analyst Midwin Charles passes away at 47. That's really a big loss. I know they did a tribute to her today on Roland Martin Unfiltered, and Monique Presley, attorney Monique Presley, was on, and Robert Patillo. Robert and I were on a segment. There was a breaking news story a couple of Friday before last, and Sharon Osbourne, it was announced that she's out at the talk. So we talked about that on Roland Martin Unfiltered, and Robert got roasted because he didn't know who Sharon Osbourne was. But in Robert's defense, he's a brilliant attorney. That story broke while we were live on the air, so that was not one of our prepared topics. But that video went viral. Last time I checked, it been viewed maybe like 140,000, 150,000 times, that segment. And I said, gotta go. And I talked about Rush Limbaugh passing away during Black History Month. Let's see. Okay. So just a second here. So yeah, legal analyst. You saw her on MSNBC. You saw her on CNN. You saw her on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Midwin Charles passes away at age 47. Commentator and legal analyst Midwin Charles passed away Tuesday, April 7th, according to her, April 6th, according to her family, who posted the devastating news on Midwin Charles' Twitter and Instagram pages. To say Midwin Charles was well respected would be an understatement, with news of her unexpected passing rocking many to the core. The daughter of Haitian immigrants, Midwin Charles brought her passion for justice with her from the courtroom into the studio. Not one to mince words, she leveraged each appearance with an opportunity to set the record straight. This is a post from her Twitter page. Let's see if we can pull this up here. This is a post from her Twitter page here. It is with a profoundly heavy heart and the deepest sadness that we announce the untimely passing of our beloved Midwin Charles. She was known to many as a legal commentator on television, but to us, she was a devoted daughter, sister, aunt, niece, and cousin. Our lives are forever changed, and we will miss her for a lifetime. The family thanks you in advance for your love and prayers. Please allow the family time to grieve, the family of Midwin Charles. As I get updates on this, I need to reach out to Roland and see if there are any. He sent me something, but it wasn't confirmed, so I don't want to talk about it. Once I get something that's confirmed, I'll let you all know. Midwin Charles brought neat context to the conversation in 2018 when Donald Trump called Haiti and other Black-led countries a S-hole. Okay, that's where Donald Trump needs to go. He needs to go into an S-hole. Take Matt Gaetz with you. Take Sugar Daddy Matt Gaetz with you. Midwin Charles gave host Stephanie Rule and fellow panelists a much-needed history lesson, beginning with Haitian independence, 1804, through American occupation's destabilization. Okay, America destabilizing Haiti. Now, a civil trial and criminal defense attorney, Midwin Charles was the founder of Midwin Charles and Associates LLC, bringing a mixture of legal understanding and cultural context. Midwin Charles provided regular commentary on law, culture, and politics to several networks, including TV One, MSNBC, CNN, and Bloomberg TV. In an appearance last month on MSNBC's Cross Connection with Tiffany Cross, and Roland was just on Tiffany Cross's show on Saturday. Did a really good segment. Okay, we posted that on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. In an appearance last month on MSNBC's Cross Connection with Tiffany Cross, Midwin Charles provided insight on the Department of Justice investigation into police killings and the jury selection for the Derek Chauvin trial, breaking down the process, including using preemptive strikes. Okay, the shock of Midwin Charles' untimely passing shocked social media, with fans and colleagues expressing their condolences. PBS's White House correspondent Yamiche Sendor described Midwin Charles as a brilliant mind and beautiful person who worked so hard. This is a picture of them together here. This tweet from Yamiche Sendor. She said, "My Haitian sis was a brilliant mind and a beautiful person who worked so hard. Her voice and presence will be deeply missed." There's a tweet from Roland. He said, "I'm shocked and stunned to learn the death today of legal analyst Midwin Charles. Midwin was a brilliant sister, a top-notch legal mind, and a sweet woman. We are all saddened by this news. She was just 47 years old." Okay, so condolences from Yvette Nicole Brown. Okay, Brooklyn born and bred, Midwin received her bachelor's degree from Syracuse University. She later attended American University, Washington College of Law. She had a prestigious early legal career, clerking for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit and serving as a research fellow at Harvard Law School under Professor Charles J. Ogletree Jr.'s stewardship. Professor Charles Ogletree. Okay, she was active in community affairs, serving as a board member for the Haitian Roundtable and the Women in Entertainment Empowerment Network. She was also a member of the Dean's Diversity Council for American University's College of Law. Committed to giving back, Midwin Charles launched the Infinite Possibilities of the Law Degree Symposium 2011. She pushed the boundaries of possibility and wanted to share that knowledge with future legal minds. Midwin Charles, after a 2013 symposium, said, "You basically can think outside the box and succeed and do very well. You basically can think outside the box and succeed and do very well." Okay, another picture of Midwin Charles here. And I used to really like to see her legal analysis on various shows. I want to go to, I think there's a clip here that we can play the audio of. Let me see here. Let me try to cue this up. We'll be here for a few more minutes. I think this is with Stephanie Rule. Let me see. Let's go to this clip here.
When your parents came from Haiti, I had the chance to go to Haiti a few years ago, and the resiliency that people from Haiti have, they don't need President Trump's approval. What they have to go through every day to survive, the natural and political disasters they face are stunning. Right. How will Haitians take this?
Well, I can tell you that the blowback has been incredibly crazy. You know, I think that most Haitians are not surprised. And yes, you are correct. Both my parents are from Haiti. I am first generation American. And when my parents.
So this is in response to, and we'll go to this still picture here, because I'm not going to show video because I don't want my video taken down on Facebook and everybody else, because they jump on me about that stuff. So let's see here. But I can show you a still picture. This is Midwin Charles. So this is in response to the trader in chief calling Haiti and African nations as whole countries. This is in response to that. Okay. All right, let's go back to this. Let's go back to this clip here.
Came here, they did so like most immigrants looking for, I am first generation American. And when my parents came here, they did so like most immigrants looking for a better life. And they've done an extraordinary job in raising two daughters who contribute to American society. And I think that's what's being lost here, is this idea that immigrants come to this country and they do not contribute to this country. Let me just give you a little snapshot about what Haiti is. In 1804, Haiti became the first free Black republic in the world. Okay, they kicked out the French and decided that they were going to have liberty and they were going to govern themselves. And as a result, they became a beacon for other Latin American countries and the like for liberty and for democracy. And so starting with that and culminating to today, which happens to be the 8th year anniversary of an earthquake that decimated a country, over 300,000 people lost their lives. So this idea that a group of people come from a country that is a shithole, and I'm going to say the word because it is the word that the president of these United States has used, is outrageous, it's degrading. And I will tell you this about Haitian people: you are not going to meet a group of people who are more resilient, who are more educated, who have more dignity, who are more hardworking, who have more respect, and who want to do nothing more than to contribute to this country and to this world. And again, let me also make a point here that Donald Trump makes a point about he doesn't want people coming from certain countries. I would beseech him to go out and read a book, get off the golf course, visit Haiti, visit Africa, and read that book and understand how history works. A lot of people come to this country because their countries have been destabilized by American foreign policy. Okay, in 1915, America occupied Haiti. All right, so I think it's incredibly important that the President of the United States understands the history of what it is that he's talking about.
Share that. I mean, first of all, thank you. Want to talk about a real American and what a real American looks like? It's Midwin Charles. Well, guess who else weighed in? Senator Dick Durbin, a Democrat from Illinois. He's now speaking out about President Trump's comments. Why? Because he was in the room. And let's listen to what he said just moments ago.
His presentation, the president interrupted him several times with questions.
All right. So that was that's back from, hold on just a second here. Let me stop this clip here. Okay, so that's back from, that's from MSNBC, and that is that's from Stephanie Rule's show on MSNBC. That was Midwin Charles before Senator Dick Durbin, responding to the Trader-in-Chief's S-Whole Country comments. That's back from January of 2018. Looks like January 12th, 2018. Okay. So she was born July 17th, 1973, passed away April 6th, 2021. As we get more information, we'll let you know. All right. Let me see. Now, there was, okay, now the day is also the birthday of one Billie Holiday. And how's everybody doing? Everybody share this broadcast on social media platforms as well. Invite your friends to tune in. You can still register for the online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, one of the original names for Egypt, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay, this is a, this time around, it's actually going to be 10 weeks. 10 weeks, close to about 20 hours online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We do the classes on Tuesdays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And all the sessions are recorded, so you can go back and watch it over and over again also, anything that you missed, okay? Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. I'm going to post a link here to the article from newsone.com that I just shared with you about the passing of Midwin Charles. All right. And, okay, so we got that here. And also, the day is, but now we know July 6th was also the birthday of Billie D. Williams. I remember Billie D. Williams on the on the Jeffersons, and Florence going crazy over Billie D. Williams, right? Billie D. Williams, right? So I remember that. But April 7th, I'm sorry, April 6th, not July, April 6th. I'm looking at July here, when Billie Holiday passed away, July 17th, when Billie Holiday passed away. But April 6th was the birth date of one Billie D. Williams. Okay. Yeah, I remember those commercials. Colt 45, it works every time. I'm on those commercials from like the 70s and 80s. They used to show it during Soul Train. Colt 45, it works every time, right? And I remember seeing the commercial. I remember seeing the ads. I think they have those ads in Ebony magazine for Colt 45. All right, so let's see here. Let me pull this up. Where do we have this here? Okay, so Billie Holiday was born Eleanor Fagan, and go check out it's about a 2-hour show that I did dealing with the United States versus Billie Holiday, the movie, directed by Lee Daniels. It's on Hulu. But remembering Billie Holiday, Eleanor Fagan was her birth name. She was born April 7th, 1915. Okay. And she was a jazz musician and singer, songwriter, and with a career spanning nearly 30 years, nicknamed Lady Day by her friend and music partner Lester Young. Billie Holiday had a seminal influence on jazz music and pop singing. Her vocal style, strongly inspired by jazz instrumentalists, pioneered a new way of manipulating phrasing and tempo. She was known for her vocal delivery and improvisational skills, which made up for her limited range and lack of formal music education. I want to look at, let's see here. So if we look quickly here at 7 things you may not know about Billie Holiday, we'll just look at a couple for the sake of time. You can read this at biography.com. Jazz legend Billie Holiday poured her heart into each song, making each song one of her own with her own distinct style. And let me do this here. Let's pull this up another way here. Let's close that out. And let's pull this picture up another way. Just a second here. Okay, so Billie Holiday once said, if I'm going to sing like someone else, then I don't need to sing at all. If I'm going to sing like someone else, then I don't need to sing at all. She saw her voice as a musical instrument, as she explained in "Hear Me Talking to You" by Nat Shapiro and Nat Hentoff. She said, "I feel." Let me see, can I bring this up? She said, "I feel like I am playing a horn. I try to improvise. What comes out is what I feel." Okay, hold on. I want to try to Trying to save this picture here. Just a second. Just give me a minute here. I'm trying to. Trying to bring this back up. Okay. All right, let's continue here. So she said, I feel like I am playing a horn. I try to improvise. What comes out is what I feel. Now, not only did she mesmerize with her voice, but Billie Holiday also lived a fascinating life filled with tremendous ups and downs. She managed to survive a difficult childhood. She managed to survive a difficult childhood, often left in the care of cold-hearted relatives, and even spent time in a Catholic reform school before joining her mother in New York City. Okay, let's bring this picture up here. Okay. Before joining her mother in New York City. Now, before she found fame as a singer, Billie Holiday did what it took to survive, including working as a prostitute for a while. She became one of jazz music's greatest stars, performing with the likes of Count Basie and Artie Shaw. Billie Holiday even appeared in a film with Duke Ellington. Her great talent, however, was later diminished by bad relationships and alcohol and drug abuse. Many of you all have seen the movie Billie Holiday United States versus Billie Holiday. Okay. And it deals with how she was targeted by the U.S. government because she refused to stop singing the song Strange Fruit, which is about the lynchings of African-American men specifically, and the atrocities that were being inflicted upon us by the U.S. government. And she was targeted by Harry J. Anslinger. All right. Now, she gave herself the name Billie Holiday after a silent movie star. Billie Holiday was born Eleanor Fagan, April 7th, 1915, though some sources say the name, some sources say the name on her birth certificate was Eleanor Harris, Elinore. Her parents, Sadie Fagan and Clarence Holiday, were both teenagers when she was born, and her musician father took off when she was still a baby. That strained relationship did not stop her from borrowing his last name when she became a performer. During her childhood, she also used her stepfather's last name, Gough, Gough, after her mother married longshoreman Phil Gough, or Gough, Gough. Okay. Now, the name Billie, Billie, came from silent movie star Billy Dove, whom Billie Holiday adored. In her autobiography, Lady Sings the Blues, she wrote, quote, I don't think I missed a single picture Billy Dove ever made. I was crazy for her, end quote. Oddly enough, Billy Dove was actually the stage name of Lillian Bohny, Bohny. Okay. Now, she got the nickname Lady Day from saxophonist Lester Young. Billie Holiday returned the favor, choosing to rename Lester Young Prez, P-R-E-S, Prez, or Prez, P-R-E-Z, depending on the source of the information. The nickname was short for President of the Saxophone, according to Donald Clark's work, Billie Holiday, Wishing on the Moon. Now, the pair became friends in the mid-1930s and later toured together with Count Basie. They also recorded together on a number of different projects, including her 1957 television special, The Sound of Jazz. 1957 television special. Most Americans didn't even have a TV in 1957. 1957 television special, The Sound of Jazz. Biographer Farrah Jasmine Griffin described Young as Holiday's creative soulmate, quote unquote, creative soulmate. So, and then Strange Fruit was one of Billie Holiday's biggest and most controversial hits. Now, the song lyrics came from a poem written by Abel Meeropol, Meeropol. And Abel Meeropol was a teacher and social activist. He was inspired to write it after seeing a photograph of a lynching. The image of this lynching so deeply disturbed Abel Meeropol that he penned the poem in protest of racial violence. Abel Meeropol, A-B-E-L, Abel Meeropol later set the poem to music, and the resulting song found its way to Billie Holiday. She started performing it at Cafe Society, which was an integrated nightclub in New York. Columbia Records, her record label at the time, did not want her to record the song at first because of its controversial subject matter. Billie Holiday ended up releasing the song on the Commodore record label in 1939, and it went on to sell 1 million copies. So we want to say happy birthday to Lady Day. She was born April 7th, 1915, died tragically July 17th, 1959, with the help of a white supremacist bigot named Harry J. Anslinger. You can read more about Billie Holiday. Biography.com has this article. We talked about, if you watched the 2-hour presentation I did dealing with United States versus Billie Holiday. I deal with this in there and a lot more information about Harry J. Anslinger also. So we have that here on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. Click on videos and you can watch it there. And then also on our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. We just re-aired that in the past couple of days. Let me flip over to this here. This is from biography.com. 7 things you may not know about Billie Holiday. Let's pull this up here. Oh, come on. I'll be damned. Just close that one ad. 7 things you may not know about Billie Holiday. This is from February 26, 2021, from biography.com. From how she got the nickname Lady Day to the origins of Strange Fruit. Here are some facts about the famed jazz singer. This is by Wendy Mead, or Med, M-E-A-D, Wendy Med, for biography.com. Biography has some good articles. That's a sister company to history.com. History.com is the official website of the History Channel. So once again, happy birthday to one Eleanora Fagan, known better by her professional name of Billie Holiday. All right, look, hey, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. Now, when you do it through Cash App, be sure to type in the AHN Show, SHOW. It'll come up, it'll say Michael, and it'll show my picture there. And if you do it through YouTube, we appreciate that, but YouTube keeps 1/3 of the donations. If you do it through YouTube, if you do it through Cash App or PayPal, we get most of it. But we appreciate it. If you have to do it through YouTube, we still appreciate it though. So this helps us keep doing the research, keep broadcasting 6 nights a week. We're on 6 nights a week, normally Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time. And then Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, pay some of the bills, etc. All right. Register for the online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And it's right on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. When you go to our website, scroll down. Let's see here. Let's flip over right quick. If you scroll down, it shows information about the radio show, how to listen. Click here to listen to audio podcasts of our shows. I'll be uploading more audio podcasts this week. Of all these shows are in audio podcast format. Download the iHeartRadio app. You can listen to us live on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF, but also search for the African History Network show on iHeartRadio. And they have about 300 of my podcasts there also. If you click here to listen to podcasts, it takes you to our Blog Talk Radio page. They have about 1,000 podcasts there. That's where I upload them, going back to 2010. Click here to listen to read articles that I've written. This is the video of the broadcast day after the Grammys, and we dealt with Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion performing WAP and negative corporate control, hip hop, all this nonsense, and how we're under attack by media and white supremacy, etc. Here's the information here about the online class. Okay, so it's regularly $130 on sale, $80. Click right here to register here. Click right here, register here, takes you to the next page. Click on enroll. As soon as you register, you can start watching. You can watch the class we just did, and you can watch the previous classes also. Okay. One of our guest speakers this time around was Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans Documented Evidence. The First Americans Were Africans Documented Evidence. And we dealt with the African presence in the Americas going back at least 51,700 years ago, including this land we call the United States of America. This was our land stolen from us. We were here even before Native Americans came into existence. And then also we had Sister Nubia Wardford, who's a cultural anthropologist. She spoke to the class as well. Okay. So next class is going to be Tuesday, April 13th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For all these sessions, we do the classes live, but all the sessions are archived. So you can go back and watch them over and over again. Even after class is over, you still have access. You can watch them. And you can watch them around the world as well. All right. So we'll post a link here. We'll post a link here, or you can go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now, it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace. Thanks for tuning in.